Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished marketing guru, an educator, and a professional from Jaipur, India, Dr. Anurag Dugar. Anurag, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Nice having me.
Thank you. Anurag is a marketing and a branding professor. He's a trainer and he's a coach. So, Anurag, before we start talking marketing and branding, tell me about your own journey in brief.
All right. Uh, I was as confused as anyone when I was in graduation. So started with I'm from Rajasthan, by the way. So started with the regular chartered accountancy course, dropped out, thought that it's too much of accounting. I don't like numbers so much. So then I thought I'll do CA, ICWI. It is less number probably. That was the understanding, but I was wrong, left that out. I joined CS as well because it's more theoretical law and other stuff. But then I realized it was too much theory, as confused as anybody could be. So finally, what most confused people do in India, I did MBA and in 98. And since then, I've been working. First, I was into industry. And then just by sheer chance, I got into teaching. And I loved it so much because I was not liking industry. And interestingly, even I went to a university counseling center and I asked that old lady there that I've done MBA marketing, but I don't want to do marketing. So she said, I mean, you know which shirt you don't want to wear, but you don't know which shirt you want to wear. So I mean, fortunate enough, or lucky enough, very lucky rather, that I got into a profession which I started loving, liking. And since 2001, I've been into teaching. I was never a good student, never appeared in CAT because I knew the result beforehand. So I put IIMs at a very high pedestal. And I was always wondering, "Udhar hota kya hoga? What would they do? Philip Kotler, though I'm also teaching here. What would they do? Aisa kya hai?" I got a chance to go into IIM Bangalore as a teaching assistant. And that was a wonderful opportunity, although very risky. When I still remember when I was did in that interview for the teaching associate position, and they were surprised that a person of my age with a family already settled in Jaipur with a home loan going on, with a car loan going on, wife's job, joint family, and why would I want to leave and come to IIM Bangalore? But I was so damn curious that what do they do there and why is it so different? So I said, I mean, I still remember my answer. I said, "Sir, if you want to reject me for knowledge, please go ahead and do. But please do not reject me for all these reasons that I'm earning a lot at my hometown. How will I survive in Bangalore? I'll sell my car, I'll sell my home, but I want to come and be in this institute just to see what do you do." And so probably they liked all that, and they didn't believe. Interestingly, they are in during the interview they asked me, "Get your salary slip. We don't believe that somebody who's earning so much will come for a TA position." And I came out, and during that time I was working in an organization where salary slips were accessible only to the employee and to the boss. Of course, I didn't tell my boss that I'm sitting in an interview. I called her and I said, "Ma'am, I took a leave saying something else. Now I'm sitting in an interview at IIM Bangalore and the whole thing rests on this salary slip. And I want you to get a salary slip and mail it to me." And she was like, "Anurag, you are calling your boss and you're sitting in another interview." But she was helpful enough. She sent me the salary slip and I gave it to them. And they probably selected me. And IIM Bangalore was the turning point.
Okay.
I was there for 1 year, and I often use this example to explain the feeling there. So the day I was sitting in the classes with the student because I was assisting, helping some differently abled students because they could not write or they could not listen. So I was taking their notes. So during the day I was attending classes, and during the evening or whenever I had no class, I was assisting the professor. So it was like both the ends I was watching. And learning from those mentors there, those amazing professors there, it was like, watching Sachin Tendulkar bat from the non-strikers end. I'm borrowing Sehwag's answer, I mean, statement. Nothing better could be there for a faculty, right, who is into management education, that you work with the professors and you work with the IIM Bangalore students as well. So you learn both the things.
Correct.
And that was the turning point. And then I got into IIM Shillong, and I was there for 6 years. It was a wonderful journey at Shillong, and but I'm not very comfortable with slow-paced things. And government institutes, government organizations are usually like that. So then I realized that this is not meant for me. So I left IIM Shillong for a private job, and which people around in my career, they say that it is a harakiri. You are one of the best professors at a best institute, and you're leaving that.
Mm.
And then I joined Goa Institute of Management, which in my experience of around 20 years in academics, management education, is the best institute. It's the best institute, best place to be as a management faculty.
I understand.
So I was working
Wonderful.
there. And last 4 months, I have been doing an experiment. I'm on a leave for 1 year because I thought I would love to travel and teach. So I'm traveling and teaching and being with my family. So I'm not on job, but I'm teaching at various institutes like Masters Union, IMT Nagpur, IIM Sambalpur, and so on.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So let me ask you a few questions now relating to marketing and branding.
Sure.
How would you define branding in today's digital age?
I believe this thing that in digital age, things have changed. But if you look at a brand, and I mean, I'm sharing my views, so you might disagree, the audience might disagree. But I believe that the core of marketing, branding, everything remains the same. It is just that the platforms are changing and the ability to do certain things are getting added. The core remains the same. So if I go back like 100 years back, say when Coca-Cola was launched in 1880s, or Colgate was launched, or probably after 100 years, now 200 years, the core of branding, that you do 1,000 small things right every day, every time, it still remains the same. Just that I was doing in the offline world, now I'm doing in the online world.
Correct.
And I believe digital is just another platform. I believe when TV would have been launched, a similar hype would have been there. Things would have changed, just like print, for example. So now I believe the branding remains the same. It is the promise that you make to the customer and fulfill it every single time over and over again. That remains even true in branding.
Okay.
So even talk of brands like Amazon, who have online presence, mostly online presence, even they would do the same things, right? Do small things right, fulfill the promise that you have made, make a difference. That's it. That's my view.
Fair enough. Great response. And what are some of the common misconceptions that you have come across when it comes to branding?
Oh, one of my favorite ones, because I teach so many students, and nowadays many students are starting their own ventures. And I say this in the class, is that these young guys are very intelligent. They are very resourceful with internet and chat GPT and all that. However, they are in a hurry. And this rush, this probably adrenaline rush, or just to, make a mark, that feeling, that excitement, exuberance, youthful exuberance, they straight away, they'll find a need that they want to, serve, or a gap in the market. And they straight away go to, sir, naam bana lete hain, interesting sa logo bana lete hain, and let us just get into the market and do it and make it big. Whereas I believe the biggest mistake that brand managers, brand owners can ever do is not planning before launching. So planning for the brand, not for the business. Of course, you do that, but planning for the brand. For example, I would be consulting or training or mentoring or coaching these startups, and rarely have come across anybody who would have said, sir, this is the need that I want to fulfill. Fine, fair enough. Market, there's a gap. But my brand's personality should be like this, that it should be, a decent friend to the customer. They won't plan like that. They'll go to, sir, naam book kara lete hain. This name looks good, sir. We make a logo, sir. We use this color. So visual appeal of the brand and the love of action with these young guys actually stops them, or probably they don't look at the boring stuff, the planning stuff. And without planning, when you launch the brand, chances are you will make mistake, because today the brand will use X tone, tomorrow the brand will use Y tone, and that inconsistency let the brand, become the brand that you want to.
Well said. And what would you say are some of the essential elements to consider when developing a brand strategy?
So I have thought a lot about this, that how to conceptualize a brand. So, in my opinion, or the way that I tell these organizations is right from thinking about the vision to your vision, mission, and core values, philosophy, those things. Then doing the segmentation, targeting, positioning, revisit it once again, and then do what are your other brands, other businesses, what this brand would be in future, plan for those things. Then you make strategy for, okay, fine, how many touch points we will have, what will happen at each touch point, what will the consumer feel there, what will the consumer understand there, and how are we going to execute it. And then you go into execution, where the design part, and then the management part. After the launch, you manage the brand. But 3 stages before launching. One is the research of your own, from vision to your purpose and all that. The second is making strategy about brand personality, brand positioning, everything. Creating brand briefs, creating creative briefs. Everything should be ready before we get into the, launch phase. Then we launch the brand, and then we take it forward. The homework must be done. You cannot avoid the homework.
I understand. The other question that I had, Anurag, was that, there are some brands that last 100 years. Yes. You gave the example of Coca-Cola, for example. And there are some brands that die within a few years.
Right.
What are these brands that survive 100 years doing right?
I remember reading a 2018 article probably, and in Harvard Business Review, and the article was titled very interestingly. That article was titled somewhere on these lines, that forget brand loyalty, think of brand relevance. So in one word, if I have to answer, it's relevance. So how do I keep my brand relevant in consumers' lives? I somehow believe, and probably because I'm a bit old school, I believe the older brands were into that, because in those days, brand building took a lot of time. And then they realized that, that if we have invested so much, we have worked hard, and you have created a brand, keep it relevant for the consumer, and then the brand would just go on and on and on. For example, Colgate, I think 1811, it was launched. Coca-Cola, as we discussed, 1886, and Pepsi, 1911. So these brands have somehow managed to keep themselves relevant in consumers' life.
Right.
If brand is not relevant, of course, I will not consider, and it will fade away. But one very interesting thing that I have noticed these days, and the other day I was talking to some of the students about this. In this era, you have certain brands which are, in this era, you can make brands very quickly. For example, let us look at Nothing as a brand, Nothing phone, right? OnePlus, even OnePlus for that matter. Nokia would have taken probably 20 years or 10 years to reach a particular level. OnePlus did that in 2 years. Nothing did it in 1 year. Threads, ChatGPT, these are brands, and they have grown so quickly. But interestingly, if you look at them, they fizzle out very quickly as well.
Yeah.
So I often wonder how my students would manage in this setting where brands emerge as very big and then they fizzle out very quickly as well. But I believe in your days, probably when I started my career, of course, you are way much more experienced than me. Things would take time, and then gradually, right? Now I can make a brand very quickly.
Yeah. But as you said, you make a brand fast, some will survive, but a large number of them may not survive.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. But my next question, Anurag, is that what is the role of consumer perception in the success or failure of a brand? One
I
is
think
perception, one is experience.
yes. So let us talk of perception first, because I believe it is more important.
Correct.
In my 25 years of being into marketing, preaching and practicing marketing, I have learned that there is no bigger lesson than perception is reality. The consumer believes or perceives your brand is good, it's good. If your consumer perceives the brand is not good, it's not good, period. And changing that perception is very difficult. You require a lot of time, resources, manpower, energy, money, etc., etc. And so perception is reality is the biggest lesson that a marketer can ever learn. Whatever the consumer thinks, he or she is right. And
Right.
nowadays with smartphones and the internet connection, they can make others believe that too very quickly. I believe perception is very, very important. And that is why I once again would like to go to the first point that we discussed. If you will not plan for the brand properly, you might make mistake in creating perceptions. And then changing those perceptions is so difficult, so difficult. Tata Motors, they have been, to shed the perception of being a taxi car when Indica and Indigo were there. And, they were struggling big time. To change that perception, they have been working so hard for last 10, 15 years. And now we see a different Tata Motors.
Well said. Absolutely right. It's a great example. But the other question that I also wanted to ask you was that, and we've often seen brands reach a stage when they face a crisis. We saw Maggie go through that. And we've seen many brands across the world. How should brands react when their reputation is at stake?
So reputation management, it has become such a, a big thing these days. Many good B schools already run a course on reputation management. And they touch upon how to handle reputation crisis. But I also, whatever I know, there is no formula, I believe. There is no formula at all. Let us look at the Maggie case that you said. In 2003, Coke, Pepsi, and Cadbury's Dairy Milk all suffered a big blow, or they were in a similar position. Pesticides were found in Coke and Pepsi, and worms were found in Dairy Milk. And that was around Diwali time, so big season for Cadbury's. But then 2003 was a landmark year in this whole domain of reputation management. The way Cadbury's dealt with it, and the way Pepsi dealt with it, and the way Coke dealt with it are, interesting case studies, because they have differences as well as similarities. So there's no formula as such. On the contrary, if you look at the Maggie case, similar type of thing where lead was found or some other things were found in Maggie. But Maggie's reaction was entirely different, right? While Coke, Pepsi, and Cadbury's went into the defensive, they went into explaining to people why they are correct and why, they are improving, etc., etc. Maggie was absolutely silent because consumers themselves were not believing that what's happened. So interestingly, I remember listening to the speech of then Pepsi CMO. He said that Cadbury's took Amitabh Bachchan for their reputation management, or to deal with the reputation crisis that they had. And Coca-Cola took Amir Khan. So when these two celebrities were roped in, one reason that they didn't rope in the celebrity was that everything would look so similar. So because of that, they roped in their CEO himself. And the CEO came on TV and said, Pepsi is safe, main keh raha hu aapse, and all that, mere bacche Pepsi peete and all that. So I think the strategies have their own similarities and they have their own differences, but you need to know which one to use when. So I don't think there is a formula that if there is this crisis, you do this. I think it has a lot to do with how your brand is positioned in consumers' head. So Maggie, interestingly, never said a thing. They were absolutely silent, and people were talking about it. Maggie kab aayegi, Maggie kab aayegi, Maggie kab aayegi.
Well said. Well said. So I have time for two more questions for you. My next question is, what trends do you see branding going through in the next few years, given the onset of so much technology?
I just believe that with technology, uh, if you use your head and heart properly, only then you can harness the power of technology. Otherwise, we will keep seeing goof ups that happen all the time. I'm pretty sure that you would be getting SMSs at 2 o'clock in the night saying buy a 2 BHK flat, golden chance. These are marketeers, right? So you have technology, you can reach to the right people, you can reach the right doors, as they say. But I believe if we do not use our hearts and heads properly along with technology, I think we'll make more mistakes. So what I see as trend that you asked is some brands using it very nicely, but most brands faltering on this. So just joining the rat race of technology, I think brands would make more mistakes than they gain out of it. Because I go to various B schools, and one thing that is happening at B schools at a very big extent, I would say, is that we are injecting young minds to that to with the fact that with technology anything is possible, with numbers anything is possible. I differ with that because I believe that you need logic, fine, so technology and data would help, but you also need magic. If you're not connecting with people on heart to heart basis, then technology can only take you to the right door, but once the door would open, the story would sell. So if you're not good at the story, so I see brands making much more mistakes than they were doing, because they are in rush to use technology. They are in rush to capture data. Have you noticed this very interesting phenomena? You go to whichever store, be it a restaurant or a barber shop, the first thing, sir, aapka number dijiye. And I believe marketing gets defeated there without solving customers. Sir, aapka number dijiye. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है that errors ज्यादा होंगी because we are not thinking.
Correct. Very true. And my last question to you, Anurag, and this is for the many people who will listen to our conversation. A lot of young people listen to our conversation. A lot of them are young professionals. To get an opportunity to listen to you is something very unique for them also. Based on all your vast experience, what would you say are 3 lessons relating to marketing and branding you would want our viewers and listeners to take away?
All right. So the first one would be this, that while it is good that you have technology, while it is good that you have the ability to capture data and make customized messages, all that sounds very good. But if you do not have your heart in the right place, then you are just another seller. Sales is very different from marketing. So you would be another interfering seller and not a good marketer, because so be careful about that. Your job as a marketer is to help people and not to trouble them with the tools that you have. That is the first thing that I want to the youngster. Second is do the boring stuff. Don't hesitate or don't shy away from the boring stuff. I have many youngsters who would, who don't like to discuss things in detail, and their orientation is karte karte seekh jayenge, karte karte ho jayega. Believe with brands, you cannot take those chances.
Correct.
There are certain things where this approach is fine, but with brands, you should be very careful. Do your homework, discuss in detail, think a lot. And the third point is be humble. As a marketer, you are fortunate enough that you have so many tools these days, resources these days, but then customer is the king, and it is not said for the sake of saying. You need to believe in that, right? You need to believe in that. You need to stay humble and open-minded. You cannot afford to be arrogant, which I believe many marketers these days I come across. They believe that with technology, with data, I can do anything. And I would request them to read about the failed products of Apple and Google, and the cemetery is full of failed products from the companies who are probably the best of markets,
Correct.
even Coca-Cola, right?
Correct.
These
Great
are the-
response. And on that note, Anurag, and your three wonderful lessons. First one was technology is good, but your heart must be in the right place. Be a marketer and not a seller. Second, you said was do the boring stuff, which is so important. And as someone who spent so many years at work, I find a lot of young people get bored with the boring stuff. So you're so right. And third one, which you said was be humble. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. I mean, I'm so amazed at how many times you took a decision to say, this is not for me, but I'm going to try something new. I loved your story at IIM Bangalore as a teaching assistant, and how from there, as they say, the rest is history. Thank you for talking to me about so many different aspects of marketing and branding. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.